Okay, so let's give them some goods. They always want some golden nuggets. Who wants, type in me if you want the golden nuggets. Type in me in the comments section if you want Chris to give you some golden nuggets. So let's talk about your connecting questions. Now, I might have asked you this before, Chris, but I'm old man. I have dementia in my old age. Did you say that do you still do any door knocking, or is it more appointment based?
I do more appointment based now.
Okay. So let's talk about appointment based. So how did you used to, like before NEPQ, when you walked into the home, how did you try to connect with the prospect? What were you saying before NEPQ to try to connect with them?
You're building rapport. Oh, I like your truck. Oh, do you quilt? I have a friend that quilts. Blah, blah,
Okay.
Blah. So that's exactly right.
And sometimes that'll work with a few people here and there, more of the lay downs. But typically, if they're not a lay down, like most people know, that you're just trying, basically how they interpreted that is like, hey, I'm just trying to get you to like me so that you'll buy what I'm offering. That's how a prospect interprets when we say, how are you doing today? Oh, I love that truck. I have a truck like this. Now, I'm not saying you can't, once you get into it, say that kind of stuff. But when you start off with like, hey, how you doing today? How's your day going? Well, your prospects, I hate to tell everybody this. And I know I don't want everybody to hate me, but your prospects hear that same question from every salesperson who's ever tried to sell them anything. So when most
of them don't care.
Yeah, well, they don't think you care how their day's going. That's the problem, right? Even if you do care, even if Chris is like, I care about every single prospect's day and I just love to hear how their day's going, your prospects don't believe you care. And they don't believe you care because every salesperson who's ever tried to sell them anything says the same question. So when you sound like everybody else, guess what the prospect thinks about you? They think you're like everybody else. And they associate you with all these pushy salespeople that they don't like. And you immediately cause a lot of your prospects, I'm not saying everyone, but a lot of them emotionally shut down when you do that. Okay. You probably have noticed that now that you've kind of changed. You're like, I can't believe I used to do that. That's usually what I hear.
That's certainly true.
All right. So instead of asking them about the quilting and the truck and how their day's going, because there's for your industry, there's typically about 4 or so connecting questions that we want to use, because I've written out a lot of sales structures for your space. What's one example of a connecting question? We won't have them give them all, but just like one example connecting question you use.
The one I typically use straight off the bat was, hey, so besides Galen knocking on your door, what was the reason that you even set this appointment?
Yeah. Okay. So besides just, was it somebody set the appointment and then knocked on the door? I'm assuming that, okay, that's how you get it. Okay. Yeah. So if it was an ad, it'd be a little bit different, but you just tweak it. That's a good tweak. You say, now, hey, besides, my, I don't know what you call him, a friend. What do you call Gail? Just.
Yeah. Besides our door knockers or setters, our canvassers.
I wouldn't even say canvassers. I wouldn't say that. I would say, hey,
I usually refer to them by name because I know who said it.
So besides Gail just coming out to the house because they were in the neighborhood that day and knock on your door, I guess what was it that Gail talked to you about that really, attracted your attention? That's how that's a good one. You can even word it like I did there too. That's good. Now, typically, what do they do? How do they react to that?
They're like, oh, well, we've thought about solar, or sometimes they're even well, that really is the only reason.
Yeah. And I would say, like, besides just Gail coming out because he was just in the neighborhood with some other clients, but besides him, knocking on the door, I guess what was it that he talked to you guys about that really attracted your attention? Oh, well, he talked about this and that. Okay, I got your verbal cues, right? Leading to the next question. Now, there's some other connecting questions you have to ask after that, of course, but we don't have time to go through that. What about a situation question? What's a good situation question that you ask to help the prospect find out really what their real situation really is? Because most prospects don't even know what their real situation is most of the time.
So we talk about their electric bill, how much they're paying now, what inflation does, and we'll go over a 10-year span that shows what their electric bill will look like. And my question at that is, so what is your plan to pay this $300 electric bill in 10 years?
Yeah, that's a good question, right? Because it gets them to think, right? Because it's not like your prospects are just sitting around thinking about the rate hikes and how the rate hikes have gone up by 12% a year for the past 10 years. And by the time they retire on a limited income, how are they going to pay for all these rate hikes? It's not like they're sitting around thinking about that. Now, we can't just tell them that because it goes in one ear out the other, right? We're the salesperson, we're biased. But when we ask them those type of questions, it allows them to tell themselves that, right? And that's where they start to build a gap. Because if we can't, it's hard to build a gap with a prospect if we can't first help them see what their real situation is. You have to have a foundation. That's what situation questions are. They're the foundation to build the gap, right? To build the problems in their mind, right? So that's I like that question. You know, you can ask them like, so what have you been noticing as far as like on your bill, as far as all the rate hikes that have been going on? Like, can you tell me a little bit about the rate hikes and what you've seen? Oh, I don't really know. Well, if you really thought about it, do you have a bill? Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Typically your neighbors over here, they said, now I don't know, Chris, the rate hikes in your area, but what have they been at the last year or two?
7.5 to 8.
Yeah. Cause it's typically about 4 to 5% every year on average already, right?
Nationwide, they're like 15%. So, I mean, it's climbing up.
But like typically any state, even before COVID, they always go up 4 to 5% every year. It's not like they just go backwards. Oh, well, let's give everybody a discount, right? So, you know, that's a good question. You know, so it's a good question. Like, what have you seen the rate? Oh, I'm not really sure. Well, typically in this area, it's not as bad nationwide, but it's only average around 8% a year or something. Oh my gosh, that's 8%. See, it gets them thinking because most people don't even know it goes up 8%. They just blindly play it. They don't even question it, right? Okay, so that's a good situation question. How did they react when you asked that?
Most of them are like, I have no idea. I have no plan for this. And then I'll follow that one up with, how does that make you feel?
Yeah, okay, yeah, good. That's a kind of a it's kind of a probing question there. Okay, I like that. You're kind of probing a little bit deeper. Okay. Let's talk about problem awareness. So now that you've helped them, because there's other situation questions you have to ask for your industry as well, but what's one good problem awareness question? Because there's about 4 or 5 you have to ask for your space, but what's one good one that you use to help them see clearly what their real problems are?
That's a good question. I don't know if I even incorporate a real good one right now. To be honest with you.
Yeah, you got to get into 3.0, but you're missing out. So good. So I just kind of help you here. So see, 40 grand man a month, it could be making 100 grand a month. All right. So what you want to do is once they talk about the rate hikes and how much they're having to pay, you lean and you say, so do you want to have to keep paying the rate hikes if you didn't have to? No, for sure. We don't want to have to pay the rate hikes, but you have to lean in with that type of tone. See what I mean? That's a really good question, but you have to set it up with your situation questions before that about the rate hikes. And then you lean in and you say, do you want to have to, and you act like you're confused. Like, do you want to have to pay the rate hikes if you didn't have to? See, it's all in the tone and the facial expressions there too. You don't want to say, do you want to have to pay the rate hikes if you didn't have to? Because that sounds weird, right? So it's all about leaning in that type of tone with the concern. They're like, no, I don't want to have to pay the rate hikes. Good Lord, I never even thought about it. That's the reaction you'll get. It starts to build a gap more. Yeah, because, so they'll be like, no, I don't want to pay the rate hikes. Yeah, because, if you really thought about it, like if your utility company came out and knocked on your door and gave you an option, to lock in your payment over the next 25 years and never raise your bill, and then at the end of the 25 years, they just said you don't have to pay for it anymore, what would you tell the utility company? Why would I ask that?
Because they're not going to.
They're going to be like,
but you will.
Yeah, I never even thought about that. Now, yeah, so they're like, oh man, I'd sign up for that for sure. I wouldn't have to pay a bill. Now, I want you to imagine on the flip side that 5 years after they locked in your rate where they never raised it again. Because in your situation questions, we teach you in like inner circle, like we use like words like, how much is utility company forcing you to pay? Do you have a choice? Like when they're forcing you to pay that? No, I don't have a choice, because they don't realize they don't have a choice, right? These have to force these words. And so now imagine that on the flip side, they come out 5 years later after they've locked in that plan, and they come back and then they try to persuade you to go back on the old plan. where they could just raise your rate whenever they wanted to without your permission. And then, you end up having to pay the bill till you die. What would you tell them in that situation? Oh, I would tell them to like go pound rocks or whatever. See, there's little questions here in problem awareness that are really, really important, especially if you're space two. Okay, let's go into solution awareness questions. Now that you've helped them identify a problem from where they are compared to where they want to be, we then have to help them see what the future is going to look like once these newfound problems are solved, right? So what's a good solution awareness question that you get them to focus on what their future is going to look like once they, their bill's lowered and eventually they don't even have a payment?
So most of the time, I'll talk specifically about how much money they're going to save. And I'll say, so over this next 10, 15 years, what can you do with that, $10,000 that you're saving from not having to pay these electrical increases?
Yeah, I like that question. Yeah, that's good. I like that. And how do they respond to that?
Oh, well, I could do this addition, or I could use this to save more for my retirement, or.
Yeah. So they give you logical reasons and you say, so you being able to do those things, what would that do for you personally? Oh my gosh, it would relieve. See, and that gets them more in their emotional state, right? So that logical question, then the emotional question. You could even retweak that question before. You're like, okay, so let's say that we're able to come in, it's not going to be that much. We're only going to be able to save you, $1,000 a year or something like that. But, that's a lot. Now, why would I downplay how much we're able to save them? I wouldn't be like, we're going to save you so much money. We're going to save you $1,000 a year. Oh, that's not that much, right? So human beings, when we downplay something, they tend to upplay it and vice versa. So, it's only, it's not going to be a lot. You're only going to save like $1,000 a month. So 10 years, it's only going to be around 10,000. But having the extra 10,000 in your mind, like what would you do with that type of savings if you thought about it? Oh, I would do this and it would do that. Oh, you being able to do those things, what would that do for you personally? See how you lean in, the tone changes, it lowers. That triggers a prospect to think deeper about the question you just asked than if you were just in a regular tone at that point. Oh, I would do this. It would make me feel this. What's a good consequence question you use? Because there's other solution awareness questions you have to use in there too. We don't have time to go through that. But what's a good consequence question that you ask that allows them to be like, oh my gosh, like I've got to make a change?
I usually go back to the bill. So I'll say, what are you going to do when you can't pay your electric bill anymore? What choice do you have?
And how do they respond to that? What do they do?
They're like, well, you don't have a choice. You have to pay it unless you go solar, because at that point they've seen the other option.
Yeah. Okay, good. I like that. We won't go really into the presentation or anything like that, but what's a good commitment question you ask to get them to commit to take the next step and get going with you?
So I'm gonna be completely honest with you. About 80% of the time when I sell, they are asking me how to move forward.
That's good.
The rest of the time, when I'm asking them, it just, hey, so the next step for most people is to get pre-qualified and schedule that site survey. Does that sound appropriate to you?
Would that help you? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you feel like this could be do you feel like this is something you can do to really, lock in your rate and save you money? So you can put that together in a commitment question, the end result, right? And a good consequence question for your industries. Okay, but what happens if you don't do anything about this and they keep forcing you to pay these rate hikes every year like they always have, and now you're 82 years old having to pay the electric bill every month, but now you're on a limited income? What happens then? It's a really good consequence question for your space. Okay. You can use that. You're welcome. We teach all that in the inner circle and stuff because it's more industry specific. Okay. So you're noticing 80% ask you what the next steps are. I like that. That's a good commitment question at the end. All right. Any last words of advice, Chris, for any salesperson out there that's maybe new, that wants to learn how to sell, or maybe even vets that are already making, 6 figures? Any last words of advice you tell them?
learn advanced techniques, learn some things that set you apart in the market space. That's really, we're in a point in time in history where sales is not the same as it's been over the past 50, 60 years. You need new techniques. Otherwise you will not evolve and you'll get left in the dust by those old guys like me that actually do learn something new.
That's valid. I like that. Well, hey, congratulations on your success. The last question I always ask every single client that I interview on here, because I know we're doing our job right, it depending on the answer. Okay. Is your spouse happy that you invested in the training?
She's laughing right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I had to talk her into investing in the training.
What's her name?
Shira.
Shira, what would have happened if you didn't let Chris put money into the training? Where would you guys be at financially right now?
She said, not where we are now.
You would not have this compound of a house now. You're welcome, young lady. All right. I'm just giving you our time. I always know we're doing our job when the spouses like us. So that's really good. Well, hey, just wanted to congratulate you, Chris. Well done. Everybody else, we will have a live tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern inside of the Facebook group. So if you're on YouTube, if you're on LinkedIn or my personal Facebook, make sure you join the free Facebook group for that live. We go live and answer questions, Q&A. I pretty much only do that in the Facebook group for those members. So I'm going to have somebody on the team. Well, hell, I'll just do it. I'll be nice here. I'm going to have somebody in the team post the salesrevolution.pro link. So make sure you go to salesrevolution.pro, salesrevolution.pro. Make sure you join the Facebook group and then make sure you turn your notifications on. Because if you don't turn your notifications on Facebook, we have 40-some thousand people in there, members in there. So you've got a 5% chance of getting notified when I go live each week with different Q&As and trainings. We give little nibbles, little hors d'oeuvres, just little basic stuff before you get into our advanced training in our virtual training courses and stuff and group training. Like Chris is involved in some of those. But make sure you turn your notifications on so you get notified by Facebook when I do go live, if you want to make those. Wagon Sports, what are the top paying industries that you coach? We train 158 different industries. And I don't know if you heard Chris on here, but the average salesperson in his industry, which is solar, makes $4,367 a month. Chris is making around $40,000 a month. Doesn't really have much to do with your industry, unless you're selling $5 magazine subscriptions door to door. It has everything to do with your sales ability, right? Because once you have the sales ability, you can make a lot of money in pretty much almost every industry, okay? So out of the 158 industries we train, we have reps in all those industries that make 40, 50, 60 grand a month plus. Just so you know, hopefully that answered your question, Wagon. It's all about your skill level, okay? If you have the skill level, you can go sell cars and make $500,000 or $600,000 a year. If you don't have the skill level, you won't. You get into solar, make $500,000, $600,000 a year. I've got clients that make $1 million a year in his industry. Okay. But the average person in his industry makes $4 grand a month. How is that even possible? Well, skill level, right? Chris, hey, great job. Congratulations. I want to give you a round of applause. Thanks, everybody. We'll see everybody tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern in the Facebook group. And if you want to start acquiring the same skills that Chris is still learning, because he's still learning stuff, we learn stuff every week in our training, then just message me directly right now. And either myself or someone on my team will message you back some different training options that we have for your industries if you're wanting to make a lot more than you are now. Okay, Chris, thanks for being on, brother. I appreciate you.
Appreciate it. Thanks.